Hello, and thanks for listening to your SCAMLE's exclusive podcast, ExplorED. On these episodes, you will enjoy exclusive interviews with some names you recognize and some people you'll be meeting for the first time. In each of our episodes, we will ask you to think and grow and reflect as a professional educator. If you aren't yet a member of SCAMLE, we encourage you to join today. More information can be found at www.scamle.org. There, find out more information about membership, conferences, and professional development opportunities. And don't forget to join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. My name is Sarah Evanson Atkinson, and I serve as the Professional Development Director for your SCAMLE. I am an educator of 21 years and a past SCAMLE president as well.
On today's episode, we will have the honor of speaking with Mr. Jeff Jenkins, principal at Ralph Chandler Middle School and Greenville County Schools in the Upstate. In the interest of transparency, I feel as though I should note that I am a direct report to Mr. Jenkins. He is the principal at the school in which I serve. I won't lie. It's fun to interview your principal and put them in the hot seat. During episode 3, you'll hear Mr. Jenkins talk a great deal about capacity building in the professionals around him. It's important to note that this wasn't always the case. His famous line he uses at school is, "Let me clear the runway so that you can fly." For him to arrive at this level of understanding, however, in the process of capacity building in others, has taken some time. I share that not to embarrass him and not to say anything negative about his leadership, but rather to show that being an educational leader is a process. It is a metamorphosis that happens over time. As teachers, we are a bit impatient. We want students to comply, our teammates to understand, and our principals to be fully evolved on the first day of school. That's not realistic. We must enter our schools this fall with the mindset to allow for growth to take place. We must listen more than we speak, and we must show grace at every turn. In episode 3, please enjoy another hard-hitting conversation with the president of SCAMLE, Principal Jeff Jenkins. All right, we'd like to welcome Jeff Jenkins to this afternoon's podcast. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Mr. Jenkins, welcome. Happy you're here with us.
Good to be here.
So we, of course, know that Mr. Jenkins has recently been elected as the president of SCAMLE. So welcome aboard and congratulations.
Yes, thank you. It's exciting. We're getting ready to gear up for the conference and a lot of other things coming throughout the school year. So we're excited.
Very exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and allow him to introduce himself. What do you do in education? How long have you served? Where do your professional passions exist? What are you still working on? What's going on?
Yeah, so I am currently the principal at Ralph Chandler Middle School in Greenville County. Been working with exclusively with middle schools since 2004. And we've got an 8-year-old, a 2-year-old, and all of course the work that's going on with the board with SCAMLE and the things that are kind of coming up. This podcast and other things that we're working on through the fall, and obviously getting geared up for the conference in March, which, by the way, everyone, the call for presenters is already out. So go to scamle.org and you can go ahead and sign up to get ready to present for our conference. We're going to be in person. Yay!
Very exciting. So as a professional, where do your professional passions exist today?
Yeah, so lots of things, right? But current work that I'm really diving into is this idea of collaboration, model it. How do we foster that within our own organization, our own schools? I love the part of building folks up, right? So whether it's people that want to go into leadership or teacher leaders or new teachers, all the aspects of kind of building that capacity of others is something that I'm real into that work right now.
You're a highly qualified principal, absolutely, and we're going to talk about where your passions are and where your work has been taking place. But what parts of you are still under development? What parts of your professional life are still sort of under construction?
I think two things that are of real interest to me. One probably more so the idea of principal and principal mentoring, and particularly around the topic of like working with adult learners. That I think a lot of us come from the classroom where we work with kids, and then most traditional pathways for principals are through assistant principalships and managing the things that we manage, giving opportunities that we get. But a lot of times we're not coaches. We don't do professional development, and then we get in front of a bunch of adults and we're trying to coach and teach them. And so I think it's something that I'm interested in. That's very emerging work. Work I've been working on maybe a little bit more longevity recently in the recent couple of years is work around diversity. Our particular school has diverse populations, but one of the kind of unique things about our school is we have a pretty strong Muslim population. And if we're being super vulnerable for a moment here, it hit me really hard this past school year. We're in the middle of soccer season. It's later in the spring term. Ramadan is happening, and I've got a student out there that's a starter on the soccer field. And I'm watching this game, and I'm thinking to myself, he's been in my building all day long. He hasn't eaten, and he's been concentrating. He's been working, doing his schoolwork, and now he's out on the field, burning all kinds of energy, running hard and working out, and probably won't have a meal until 4:00 the next day. And it kind of struck me, this idea that diversity is all kinds of things. It's poverty, it's males and females, I'm from Germany and you're from Alabama, and so how can we be a better culturally responsive school? And so I'm excited about that work, because sometimes it's as simple as what books are we choosing to read in an English classroom, or sometimes it's saying, as a practitioner in the classroom, I don't have to be the one who knows everything about all cultures, and also with enough ability to be able to wade into those waters without stepping on pitfalls. Sometimes it's about just giving our students choice in how they present knowledge. So if the core of the lesson content is represented in however they present it, allowing students to drop back to their paradigms, to their lived experiences, to draw context and relevance, and then present that work in a way that's more authentic to them, and likely will infuse some of their own heritage cultures and things of that nature, and they can better speak to that than I can. And so sometimes it's subtle things like that just make us a little bit more culturally responsive. And then there's bigger things like multicultural fairs, and how do you do that? And then, of course, those really difficult conversations about biases and discipline data and all that. So I'm kind of in that work right now, really emerging into teaching myself and getting better myself, understanding how to go about that work so that I can then carry that into the school to start leading others through that. So that's where I need more time and more work before I'm ready to just dive in with the faculty. But yeah, I'm excited about that work.
The level of reflection that's required for that kind of work, you've already done 75% of the work, so that's really exciting. You mentioned that your passions lie talking about this idea of capacity building and building people up to be the best versions of themselves that they can be. So a lot of professionals talk about capacity building in school facilities, but so in your opinion, what does capacity building mean? What does it mean to you? And how is building capacity in professionals related, in your mind, to the communication structures and flow that schools have to maintain in order to be successful?
So a lot of the way I process information and learn is through reading. So I do. I reference the things are rooted in those lessons learned from that. So I would answer that by saying I immediately drop back to the Good to Great book when they're talking about the different kinds of leadership, and he goes on the whole part about charismatic leaders and what happens when you have a charismatic leader who, by their will, carries an organization forward to success, and then they leave, and everything behind the wake of their work behind them, the institution starts to fall because it was about their leadership. It was about them. Maybe another example is, I don't know, the football coach walks out with the playbook and the team falls apart behind him, right? Because that's his playbook. He's got to take it to the next program, build the next program. It's not about the institution. It's not about the organization. It's about the person. So for me, a strong component of this is trying to build for the good of the organization, such that, if I drop off face of the earth tomorrow, Ralph Chandler Middle School is not going to implode upon itself because it was about me and no one else knew what to do, which I think carries into the second part of your question, right? Because now we're talking about how does capacity building lead into this idea of like communication. Well, if I'm setting a vision and everyone knows what that vision is, that's one thing. Or if I've got everything hidden in the secret black box, that's a different kind of thing. The vision exists, but who knows about it? And how can that be communicated through the organization? And I think when you can stretch that capacity building, that leadership, that just shared vision, then I think folks are better able to communicate in an email to a parent. They're better able to receive someone off the street who's coming to visit the school. They're better able to continue the work, whether I'm there or I'm not there. And I think that's kind of where, I get excited about that and I think it builds this idea of people being vested in what we're doing. I'm working hard because I care about this, because I know where we're going and I believe in where we're going. And so if we can kind of create that system of building folks up and letting them being part of that process, it is better all around.
What you're talking about, though, is a very high level of vulnerability in terms of a leader. You're talking about pulling back the curtain and showing the magic that happens. How does the building unlock in the morning? You mean you actually leave and go home in the afternoon? So that kind of magic can be frightening to show off. Some principals kind of look at this idea of capacity building as a bit of a double-edged sword. So if you empower professionals and teach them and show them how they can be better versions of themselves, they might leave and go do that someplace else. Or, empower professionals in your building and they could threaten your hierarchy. What do you say to those principals who say, you know what, that's just too risky?
So this is the part, I think, so this is the part that may be uncomfortable to hear for some folks, right? I think that those things are rooted in weakness and fear. If I am creating the program that leads to building capacity in others and their success, I should be able to replicate that program with others. So if I'm making good hiring decisions so that people are kind of wired and predispositioned to be able to be successful within my program, so I'm being intelligent about what that program even is, and then what are those things that I'm looking for in a candidate that will be able to come into that system and flourish. I should be able to repeat that process. I should be able to recruit people with the right dispositions and mindsets and then put them through my program so that they can continue to be successful and replicate that. So I think the fear piece of that is, I've spent so much time and energy into this person. They're so good. And then when they go, I'm never going to be able to see that again. Okay. And I think the part of like letting folks inside, behind the curtain, as it were, right? To me, I think folks that are resistant to do that, I would ask them to check their own egos. What are you in this work for? If it's about you, you don't want anybody to know how you do what you do. If it's about the organization and about building others, then if you're not letting them in, you're hamstringing them. They can't reach their full potential because you're not allowing them. So that's a hard truth, I think, to face. And frankly, some of that is rooted in my experiences. I've worked in situations when I was teaching and doing early admin work where I felt like that's who I was working for, was people that were unable to recognize that not knowing all the answers was okay. And the way that we work around that is to then build a network of collaboration. The collaborators in our business are the ones that are most successful. And I worked for some folks early on that didn't do that part well. And then when they were caught in situations where they didn't have the answer, they gave the knee-jerk answer. They worked from instinct. Instinct sometimes was not on point. It led them to problems. I've seen how that piece of it works. And it's bad culture and it doesn't work.
So what would you say to a principal that says, Jeff, my ego's checked, I'm good, but there's no way that I can collaborate to the level that you're discussing and communicate with my people to the level you're discussing. There's not enough hours in the day. There's not enough time. I'm trying to take things off people's plates, not add to it. How do I bridge that gap?
I would ask them to go to and look at their organizational structures. And all the things that I'm talking about, we do during a school day. We don't have lots of after school meetings. We're not sitting there until 5:30 at night, doing things all the time. We have an occasional leadership meeting and we get into some heavy topics and we go a little long on a Wednesday, sure. But this stuff's happening during the day. You're doing this work in the way that you organize your teaming structures, how you organize your leadership structure, and how you empower that leadership team. Like these conversations that we're having right now are explicit conversations we've had within my building. My leadership team is empowered to say, if I'm driving us off the cliff, we're not going to be a bunch of lemmings. Raise the flag and say something, because if I'm wrong or this didn't land right, or ultimately we're hurting the school, we're hurting kids, or we're not giving them opportunities. Maybe we're not hurting kids, actually hurting them, but we're denying them success. We're denying them opportunities. We're getting in our own way. If you don't have the organizational structures that give people the platform and the ability to have that conversation with power, leadership, we're going to fail.
Teacher empowerment and teacher leadership, we're all leaders in the building. All of us are leaders in the building in some way, even if we are leading students, even if we are leading a team of professionals. So definitely a focus on leadership and cultivating the leadership qualities in each of us. Some, and it's on a spectrum, of course. There are some who are more adept at leading and some less adept at leading, and some have a firmer desire to lead than others who wish to do less of that work. I appreciate your focus on cultivating leaders where they are. That's very, very important, where they are. We'll move to our final question, last bit of fun. So if you were to recommend one resource, text, podcast, article, film, whatever, to your fellow leaders in education, what would it be and why?
Only get one?
Oh, well, we might give them two, friend.
I am a big fan of work that is practitioner focused. I go to places like Edutopia, journals that are going to hit a topic, and they're going to give me some takeaways that I can go and do in my building. That's, I think, where I would send folks is to gravitate towards that network of work, because it's a lot of times it's just in time. I mean, they're talking about what we're dealing with now. If you go to those places right now, there's articles on diversity. There's articles on how we open up schools again, and when we've had a lot of virtual kids, right? I mean, there's all that stuff is out there. They do a good job of knowing where the wind is blowing and trying to give us access to some insights across the nation. And I think for me, that's where it's particularly valuable, because I'm hearing from folks in California and Wisconsin and Arizona, and I'm able to kind of step back out of my own particular experience and pull in some other ideas that are helpful. So,
and we can't forget our friends at Edutopia. There are videos on there. There are videos. Who doesn't love a really good, simulation video or, classroom video? Before we go, I just want to give you a minute or two to talk about all the cool things that are going on with SCAMLE as you lead the board. What's coming up at the end of this month? A birdie told me something really exciting is happening at the end of the month with your board. I wanted you to talk through that a little bit, and then just share what you would like to about SCAMLE.
I'm really excited, stepping into the role as president of the board, and we actually are going to be having a board retreat and those things, later this month to kind of help set direction for the organization for the coming year and even a little bit further out than that. I'm really excited about this pod. And we have been talking over a number of years about trying to make sure that we are not just the annual conference, that we're providing opportunities to help educators across the state throughout the year. And so just even in the past year, I think being out there with some of our Zoom series that we've done, the Learning Lab series that we did in the spring, now this podcast. So that's really kind of the work that we're diving into is trying to make sure that we're providing what membership needs to be there to help grow throughout the school year, and obviously the conference coming up. And so we're kind of working on those things. We're some very early work that we're starting to kind of ponder and consider, about maybe getting into some micro-credentialing and some of those kinds of things. So lots of things happening. We're working hard to try to remain relevant throughout a school year so that, folks are getting some good infusions and takeaways that are helpful for them at the time they need it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.